Yes, good afternoon people. Another quick video. Today I would like to address Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. His comments implying that the EU and NATO are to blame for Russia's war in Ukraine and the backlash he's faced from the media and politicians. Before I get into it, share, comment, like and subscribe. Nigel Farage claimed that he warned of potential war in Ukraine in 2014 when he was a member of the European Parliament. While being interviewed on BBC's Panorama, Nigel Farage reiterated the EU and NATO provoked Russia's invasion of Ukraine by expanding eastwards. When challenged on his beliefs on the invasion of Ukraine, Farage said he disliked the Russian president personally, but admired him as a political operator because of the extent of his control over Russia. He added, "I stood up in the European Parliament in 2014 and said, there will be a war in Ukraine and we will provoke this war. Of course it will be Putin's fault, but it makes no sense to poke the Russian bear with a stick. And he's used what we've done as an excuse to invade Ukraine." The Conservatives, Labour and the Liberal Democrats have long accused Farage of being an apologist of the Russian president. James Cleverly, the Home Secretary, criticised Farage's comment, saying he was echoing Putin's vile justification for the brutal invasion of Ukraine. Former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace said the Reform leader was voicing sympathy to someone who deployed nerve agents on the streets of Britain. And John Healey, the Shadow Defence Secretary, called the comment disgraceful, adding that Farage has shown that he would rather lick Vladimir Putin's boots than stand up for the people of Ukraine. That makes him unfit for any political office in our country, let alone leading a serious party in Parliament. Labour leader Keir Starmer called Nigel Farage's comments on Ukraine disgraceful. And Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said Farage's comments play into Putin's hands. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson also weighed in, saying, "There is only one person responsible for the Russian aggression against Ukraine, both in 2014 and in 2022, and that is Putin. To try to spread the blame is morally repugnant and parroting Putin's lies." On Monday, at a Reform UK rally in Maidstone, Nigel Farage hit back, labelling Boris Johnson the worst Prime Minister in modern times, and insisted, "I would never ever defend Putin," then unveiling a giant copy of a newspaper front page with the headline, "Boris Johnson blames the EU for the war in Ukraine." Farage said, "Well, perhaps it's Boris Johnson that's morally repugnant and not me. So what kind of hypocrite is this man?" It just sums up the Conservative Party. No principle, no real policy, just short-term changing of views with the wind. He then doubled down on his comments, saying, "Don't blame me for telling the truth. I saw it coming a decade ago, warned that it was coming, and I am one of the few political figures who has been consistently right and honest about Russia's Ukraine war." While I am not a fan of Nigel Farage, The fact that he stuck to his statements and did not bow to media pressure and refused to apologise says a lot about him. We need more politicians who are willing to speak the truth and challenge the status quo. But what I'm thinking, Wiil Nigel Farage's recent comments on NATO's role in provoking Russia and its invasions of Ukraine impact his support in the upcoming general election? It remains to be seen whether his remarks will sway voters. In my opinion, telling the truth should not result in losing votes. Rather, it should be valued and appreciated, potentially even gaining more support. It is important to communicate truthfully with a population you might rule over. In 2014, he warned that NATO eastward expansion could lead to a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and his recent restatement of this position suggests that his earlier prediction was accurate. Despite this, he is facing criticism and condemnation. Could it be that he is being silenced for speaking the truth, as opposed to the authorities not wanting the public to know the reality? Over the past 2 weeks, the mainstream media has been captivated by Nigel Farage, featuring him extensively across various platforms, including TV, radio, and newspapers. However, the recent shift in sentiment towards him, following his controversial comments on NATO potentially provoking Russia, has been noticeable, with more formal and critical tone now prevailing in their coverage. In today's world, speaking the truth can lead to serious repercussions, including being ostracised, censored, or even facing legal action. Are we on the brink of witnessing a character assassination of Nigel Farage in the media? Boris Johnson's attribution of the war in Ukraine to the EU in 2016, along with Nigel Farage's consistent warning of conflict since 2014, as reiterated on Panorama, has sparked debate. It appears that certain revelations are emerges which may not align with the views propagated by the establishment. Despite Farage's stance, world leaders have universally denounced his claims, asserting that Russia's invasions of Ukraine was the catalyst for the conflict, and not the fact that NATO moved 1,000 miles east. The contrasting opinions have left individuals to discern the truth for themselves. The recent condemnation of Farage by Boris Johnson, labelling him as morally repugnant and likening his statements to echoing Putin's propaganda, raises questions about the alignment of political narratives. No, I'm not a Putin apologist, but you don't have to be Einstein to know that the West is the aggressor here. And I'll end with this. The establishment expressed disapproval of Nigel Farage's remarks linking the EU and NATO to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He faced criticism from mainstream media, ministers of various parties, and foreign politicians. Despite expectations of backlash, the public remains supportive of Farage. However, the issue seems to have faded from the mainstream media, leading to speculation about why there is limited coverage. Could it be that the public agrees with Farage's views on the situation, and there is a lack of transparency in reporting to keep the public informed? With all that's going on worldwide, I personally think we're at the beginning of World War III. although this has not been confirmed. Thanks for watching. Share, comment, like and subscribe. Out of here.